Hello folks, it's Tuesday the 2nd of September 2025. Welcome along to Somewhere on Earth. And with us today is Anya Literovich. Here she is again. Anya, hello, how are you? You're excited, aren't you?
I am incredibly excited because you'll never guess what this is. This is a very, very, very special show.
Yes, it's the 100th edition of this show. Hey, it's a landmark.
We've made it into triple figures. I'm so excited. But we can chat all about that later, can't we?
Yeah, indeed. Enough self-congratulation. The people want content, so let's deliver. Otherwise, we may not get to our 101st edition. So here we go. And coming up today, abusive websites and privacy-violating AI. Yes, lots going on in this edition, including how LGBTQ plus people in many African countries are suffering abuse online. And those naughty AIs. If you have one of those AI browser extensions, you might want to think a little bit about the information that you share with it. A new study reveals that these add-ons might be trading privacy for usability. That's all right here on the Somewhere on Earth podcast. Right then, so the internet isn't a very nice place if you're LGBTQ plus in many African nations, and the tech companies don't seem to be doing very much to help. The digital rights group Access Now has been surveying LGBTQ plus communities across Africa to find out what kinds of online threats people are facing. Well, I've been hearing more from Jaimee Kokonya. She's Africa campaigner at Access Now.
It's a really difficult time for queer people in the region. The intolerance obviously comes from the fact that in a lot of our countries, we have, laws that criminalize consensual same-sex acts. So this could be like anti-sodomy laws or anti-gay laws or anti-LGBTQ laws like we're seeing in Uganda. So that's the basis of a lot of the intolerance that we're seeing. We're also seeing like the rise in global fascism in the world right now. And that means that a lot of the far-right ideologies are becoming more mainstream. And we know that a lot of those ideologies, are seeking to roll back rights for women, for queer people, for racial minorities, for religious minorities. So that's playing a part in it as well, because there are a lot of foreign interference in the discourse on homosexuality and homophobia in Africa. And unfortunately, like political homophobia especially is playing a key role in it and in the incitement to violence against queer people, but also in the anti-LGBTQ disinformation that we're seeing online. But we know that this is not something that is unique to Africa, because we're seeing, a lot of the populist far-right political leaders globally deploy these kinds of tactics. But that kind of political scapegoating is also playing a very huge role in the discourse that we're seeing online against queer people.
Sure. Can you give me some examples of the kind of intolerance and abuse that we're seeing online?
Yeah, so we published a report last year that we called like our rainbow burning report. But it was essentially a report that was a social media case study of the kind of threats that queer people are experiencing online in sub-Saharan Africa. So we looked at Kenya, Ghana, Ethiopia, Uganda, and Nigeria. And we saw many different threats. So political homophobia, as I mentioned, was a huge issue in Kenya and Ghana especially. So we'd see content with political leaders, for example, calling for queer people to be killed or to be banished from their communities, or mobilizing support for anti-LGBT protests offline. We had a couple of anti-LGBT protests in Kenya in 2023 that was really concerning. This actually led to the High Court issuing a ban on anti-LGBT protests because of the incitement that had happened as a result of that. And then in countries like Ethiopia, we saw a lot of doxing on TikTok. So this would be situations, for example, where Some bad faith actors will create anonymous accounts on TikTok and they'll collate pictures of random people who they are assuming or accusing of being queer based on different physical attributes. Maybe if they've colored their hair uniquely, if they have facial piercings, if they have a rainbow flag on their social media profile. So they'd collate all of these pictures and then post them on TikTok and say things like, these are the gay people in Addis Ababa, or these are the gay people in Ethiopia. And a lot of the comments would have really dangerous rhetoric, for example, saying that, the government needs to do something about this community. They're a stain on our country or on our religion. They need to be killed. And some of those doxing cases also led to people experiencing violence offline. So one of the people that was doxed on TikTok actually was attacked by their classmates in university, and they had to flee Ethiopia because of the violence that they experienced, which was really concerning. And then in Ghana, doxing again, so situations where there are now bad faith actors who know that queer people use dating apps to, meet each other. And so they've infiltrated those dating apps. They'll create fake profiles like honey traps, and they'll get queer people to meet them in person, and then they'll kidnap them and take intimate images of them without their consent and then use that to blackmail them. So reach out to their contacts and say, we have so and so in our custody. If you want to release them, you need to give us this amount of money. In some situations, that led to those intimate images actually being posted online. In other situations, they were only shared with the person's contacts. And in other situations, they were not shared at all, but the threat of having those intimate images kind of led to a more long-term blackmail for some of the victims. So this was happening where some of it was posted was like on TikTok and on X as well. But even on apps like WhatsApp, which is not a social media platform, but is a platform that queer people have been using alternatively since they don't feel safe on dating apps. Even those spaces have been infiltrated by these criminal gangs. So the non-consensual intimate imagery and entrapment was happening on WhatsApp as well.
What is being done, or what can be done more widely or by Access Now yourselves to address this?
We've been using different tactics. We have a digital security helpline, for example, that provides 24/7 emergency response support to communities at risk. So in a lot of the situations where, for example, the cases that our partners in Ghana had been documenting of the cases of entrapment and blackmail on like WhatsApp and X and Facebook, a lot of that was reported directly to our helpline. And we were able to provide support to the partners who reported that kind of content. And one of the things that we actually saw and highlighted in the report is that in the situations where we would directly escalate the reporting to the platforms, that content would be taken down. But in situations where we would use the social media platforms in-app mechanisms to report their content, which is the means that the majority of people have access to report this kind of content, then through the in-app mechanisms, most of the time the content would not be taken down. So then that creates a huge disparity in the responses that people are able to have, and also the kind of harm that's escalating on their platforms because of that, because not everyone has access to Access Now's helpline. Most people only have access to the in-app mechanism. So if they're not working, then that's a huge problem for users, especially queer users in Africa. But we've also provided like capacity building, digital security training support to our partners so that they're able to build the skills to prevent, mitigate, and respond to a lot of the threats that they're seeing. And even in contexts like Uganda and Kenya and Ghana, where the anti-LGBTQ laws, in Uganda, where one is enforced, in Kenya and Ghana, they're still in the legislative phase, they've not passed yet. But when these laws pass, there is a possibility of a risk, for example, of the police raiding LGBTQ organizations. So there's a lot of digital security support that they need to prepare for in the event of things like raids by the police. So we've provided them with that kind of capacity building support. But we've also created tools like digital safety tips for safe dating guides, and also for LGBT activists in Africa. And we hope to produce more content like that because we know that there's a huge need for that, and especially to make sure that it's accessible and that, it's also accessible in the languages that we speak on the continent. But other than that, we've also been doing a lot of advocacy against the anti-LGBT legislations. We've provided a digital rights analysis of the bill in Ghana and how it's going to impact things like freedom of expression and the right to privacy and business and human rights, and provided recommendations to, the governments to not pass those kinds of laws.
That's Jaimee Kokonya talking to me a little earlier. And Anya, let's bring in you here because, you set that item up. You spoke a lot to Jaimee before we did that interview. It's what we call the pre-interview, isn't it, in the business? So what was your take as you were fixing the story up and deciding to run it on the podcast? Why did it matter to you?
Well, I think for me, it was the issue that this whole internet story, if you like, for LGBTQ plus people in Africa started off quite positive. That was the kind of image that I got, the impression I got that, initially these were safe spaces for people. And then what happened was that in some countries, you'll hear more about specific examples in the pod extra, actually. There, as soon as laws came in to physically restrict LGBTQ plus activity in some way, what that seemed to do was allow or give this sense of allowance to people to then abuse or entrap or just make those safe spaces no longer safe. And I think that's been very evident over the last few years, and that keeps coming up, that does actually happen a lot.
And Anya, it's Access Now, they've gone beyond but only doing the research, but this goes further, doesn't it?
Yeah, so they've actually published a digital safety guide for LGBTQ plus activists in Africa. So if you go onto their website, you should be able to get onto that. And also, there's a digital security helpline where you can find digital safety tips and strategies that may be relevant to your life and work. So there's a whole gateway on there, and I'm sure that there will be useful resources if you were unlucky enough or unfortunate enough to need them.
Anya, thank you. Now, at this point, I would sing Happy Birthday, but it's not really a birthday, but it is an anniversary. But fun fact, actually, the Happy Birthday tune, apparently, I think it is copyright. You'd probably know more about this than me, Anya.
It is completely copyright. We cannot touch it. We cannot hum it. We cannot You can't do anything with it. It's so protected. It's one of the, you would think the Beatles would be, or Queen or someone, but no, it is. Happy birthday. Ooh. Never, ever touch it. It's one of the first things you learn in broadcasting and music rights.
Right. So we could sing ourselves Happy Birthday, but it'll cost a lot of money. We'll get in trouble.
It would. And I didn't check for other languages,
Oh, yeah. Well, perhaps you can sing it in
Polish
Hausa
is a different tune. Yeah, maybe we should sing it in Hausa. That would be better.
Yeah, well, there you go. So it's, it's a bit silly. So anyway, but we would like to wish ourselves a happy anniversary. It's 100th edition of Somewhere on Earth. We think it's quite a landmark because it's not easy setting up a whole new podcast and getting it off the ground and keeping it going every week, as you yourself will know, Anya, because you do most of the work. So it's, it's hard. So it's a brief moment of patting ourselves on the back, but don't worry, the content will continue. And in fact, let's keep it going because I think we should look back at, let's just choose a highlight each from the last 100 editions. So which was one that stood out for you, Anya? Do you have one?
Do you know what? I think it was some of the live on stage ones we did at Web Summit. So the first African-born Arab woman to go into space, and then you and me and Brittany Kaiser and Eli from Roost. all on stage in Rio. I thought they were real highlights because it's what we love doing, and it was in front of an audience. And then obviously the other ones were the big names. So Jimmy Wales, and recently who passed away, Dame Steve Shirley. What an absolute honour to have spoken to her.
Yeah, absolutely. And there have been so many tributes to Dame Stephanie, and you listen to them and you just think, yeah, we're proud of ourselves that we interviewed her and that she said yes to us and came on and was absolutely lovely to interview as well. So, yeah, well done for mentioning those. And I did love that on stage one at Rio. It was a real laugh doing it, but we just got some great stuff. Like Eli and Brittany were on form, as indeed were you, Anya. And yeah, it was just one of those ones that ticked along. It just felt good at the time. So, okay, one from me. It's so many, but maybe the Fiddy food serving robot.
Oh, that was a good one.
That was good, wasn't it? So for people who can't use their arms, and it's like a companion to have at the dining table so that you just feel less excluded sitting around the dining table with others. So I like that one. Oh, I said I was just going to do one. I've just thought of another. Can I?
Go on then. Go on. It's only a 100th episode once, so I'll allow
Yes,
it.
I know. So yeah, no more self-congratulation for at least another 100 episodes. My goodness. But when we went to the White and Case, the law firm, and we did that Agritech special, and we talked about aquaponics and stuff like that. And I think what I enjoyed about it, partly because the whole thing, like literally every minute of the program, certainly I learned something new. I just thought probably if I was a listener, I'd be thinking, I'm learning from this. Like literally every Q&A, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. That's fascinating. So I enjoyed it from that point of view. But also what a nice surprise it was from me, because, I thought, well, we're going to be doing a special edition from a law firm. Isn't it just going to be a little bit dry? But, oh my goodness, such a good edition. Yeah, I really
it was
enjoyed
brilliant.
that.
Emmy.
There you are.
Emmy was amazing. Yeah, you tell why.
Yes.
She's a very senior corporate lawyer. Just brought everything to life, because again, I was really worried. I'm like, oh my goodness me, this is a posh law firm. This is really not our environment, is it, Gareth?
It's not our natural habitat.
Definitely
I mean, that reception area was looked like, something from a futuristic architecture stroke sci-fi movie, and in we walked.
But we survived.
They didn't kick us out until the end.
Anyway, here's to the next 100. If all our lovely listeners, subscribers could please leave us lovely reviews, that would really help boost the algorithm. So if you haven't given us 5 stars, please do. Please do, because that really helps boost us up on all those podcasting platforms, and check out our YouTube channel too, please.
Yeah. Indeed. No, please do, folks, because I mean, it can sometimes feel like we are just going from edition to edition, doing our best, trying to keep it going, and none of it's going to work without your support, basically. So if you want another 100, you're going to have to be nice to us and subscribe and all that stuff. Thank you, folks, and thank you for your support over these last 100 as well. You're amazing. We love you. Thank you. We did it together. All of us on the team, and you, dear listener, the most important person in the room. And I mean that, actually. Okay, moving on. So then, folks, how are you enjoying that highly useful AI browser extension, like, say, ChatGPT for Google, or Merlin, or Copilot? Well, a few of these add-ons are on the naughty step, with researchers who've been telling a security conference that such tools collect and share user data like medical and social security details. Dr Anna Maria Mandalari is with UCL's Department of Electronic and Electrical Engineering, and was a senior author on this recent study, and it was presented at the Usenix Security Symposium in Seattle. Welcome along to Somewhere on Earth. How are you doing?
Hello, thank you very much for the invitation. Very happy to be here.
Excellent. Now, thanks very much for coming on. Now, just to help out some of the people who might need a bit of setting up here, can you be a bit clearer about what we mean, first of all, by these AI browser assistants?
So they are basically browser add-ons that embed the generative AI into your everyday web use. Think of tools like ChatGPT for Google, Merlin, Copilot. Basically, instead of going to a chatbot website, those assistants sit inside your browser and can summarize pages, answer questions, even fill forms for you as you are browsing, basically.
I mean, so they're incredibly useful. And you mentioned Copilot there. Just to be absolutely sure, because Microsoft, they're very naughty, really, because they've stolen that name in a way, haven't they? Let's not accuse them of stealing, but you know what I mean. They've kind of adopted the name Copilot.
Yeah.
But so do you mean generically these kind of AI Copilots, or specifically Microsoft, or?
No, so basically in our study, we studied the most popular extensions, including ChatGPT, Marlin, Copilot. That is not a Microsoft Copilot, it's another Copilot.
Yeah.
It's called Copilot AI, Cider, Monica, Max AI, Dynamind, Harpa, and Perplexity. These were the chosen, we chose them because they were badly downloaded and marketed as productivity booster at the time of the study some months ago.
Yeah, okay. So how did you look into these browser extensions?
We created what we call a controlled browsing setup. So we, first of all, installed the extensions on a fresh Chrome profile, intercepting all the network traffic with a proxy tool. We then browse both public spaces, like, for example, news, shopping sites, and also private spaces, like health portals, email, or banking. And then what we did, we simulated what we call a persona. What we mean is that we created a controlled, repeatable identity to test how AI browser assistants respond to user behavior. Specifically in the study, we built the profile of a rich millennium male from California interested in horses. So this persona was deliberately chosen because it included demographic attributes, age, gender, location, wealth, and a very specific interest like equestrian sport. So these are attributes that AI systems often infer for personalization. These specific interests make it easier to detect what we call profiling. If the assistant later suggests horse riding holidays, we know it's using the persona information, not just guessing from generic user behavior. So we tested whether the assistants would build a profile about them. This let us see exactly what information left the browser, where it went, and whether profiling or personalization was happening. It's important to differentiate between profiling and personalization.
Yeah, and it's good that you've clarified that. So what did you find then?
Yeah, so quite a lot. We found that basically these extensions are collecting a lot of data about the user. Some assistants send full web page content, including text, links, and titles, and they send this to their specific servers. Merlin, for example, even capture form inputs. We saw it record health data from a university portal and a social security number typed into the IRS sites. Others, like, for example, Cider, Dynamind, shared user queries and identifiers with third parties, like, for example, Google Analytics, which enables cross-site tracking. Many extensions stored chat histories across sessions, sometimes forever, basically.
So why does this matter then? I mean, bluntly, why is it an issue?
If the data is transmitted to their own server, and often third-party trackers have, such as, for example, in our case, the extension that we studied, Google Analytics or Mixpanel, once your data are there, they can be used to build detailed user profiles. Not just what you type, but what the AI infers about you, your age, gender, income level, interest. This kind of data could be used for advertising, personalization, or in the worst case, could be exposed in data breach. And sometimes, as we have seen in the past, they're not just used for influencing the user about their shopping preferences, but also for voting or health insurance and other important private, let's say, future application of your data.
But there was one of these extensions that kind of passed the test, as it were. It came out quite well from this study, didn't it?
Yeah, only one, that is Perplexity, it stood out because it didn't collect web page content, it didn't track user identifiers, and explicitly said that it doesn't retain memory between sessions. It's not perfect, but it was the only one that didn't show profiling or personalization at all.
But I do wonder, though, is this just an inevitable trade-off between something that's incredibly useful? You trade a bit of privacy in return for the utility you get from these things. Isn't that trade-off inevitable?
Not necessarily. So these assistants are marketed as tools for convenience, but our findings show that they often overcollect, sometimes even violating laws. Like, for example, this study was done in the US, so they violated the HIPAA when health data is captured. And then we saw that some of them, like for example, Perplexity, are still working and working well without retaining any personal data. Privacy by design solutions are also possible. Local processing, for example, clear opting in consent, limited what data is shared. So we shouldn't really upset the narrative that convenience must come at the expense of privacy. But today, for most of these extensions, that's unfortunately the case. At UCL, in fact, we are working on a solution in this space, developing tools that let people see exactly where the data is going, to whom. The idea is to give users transparency control, so they can make informed decisions about which assistants to trust.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that work. I look forward to hearing the outcome of that. I think it's very important work. And so just in case people missed it, so the good one, as it were, of this study was Perplexity. That's the one, isn't it, if they need to look it up?
Yeah.
Good stuff. Thank you very much indeed, Anna. All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Anna. That's Anna Maria Mandalari. She's at UCL. And you can hear a little bit more from Anna in the podcast exclusive, in our subscription version of this podcast. And to get that, you subscribe via pod.fan. Tell your friends as well, and we really appreciate it. As I keep saying, those subscriptions help us keep the lights on round here. So, that's coming up in the extra. I think that'll do for this edition. Don't forget, of course, we're with the lovely Evergreen Podcast Network. More from them via evergreenpodcast.com. And we're on, I think, pretty much all your favourite social media, apart from X, because we've decided not to be on it anymore. So there we are. Our editor is Anya Lichtarovich. The production manager is Liz Toohey. And I'm Gareth. And a final massive, great big thanks to our sponsor. They are Roost. Look them up. They're called Roost. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.